The Michigan DNR Hunt Fish app is your digital connection to all things hunting and fishing in Michigan. Buy, store, and display your hunting and fishing licenses, check your points and chances for elk and bear, apply for the draw, and view drawing results. Access all the hunting and fishing regulations, view your hunter safety certificate, and report your harvest, all from within the Michigan DNR Hunt Fish app. Just click the app banner at the top of the page for download instructions at michigan.gov/hunting. You know what that sound means. It's time for the Michigan DNR's Wildtalk Podcast. Welcome to the Wildtalk Podcast, where representatives from the DNR's Wildlife Division chew the fat and shoot the scat about all things habitat, feathers, and fur. With insights, interviews, and your questions answered on the air, you'll get a better picture of what's happening in the world of wildlife here in the great state of Michigan.
Hello and welcome to the July episode of the Wildtalk Podcast. This is your host, Rachel Lincoln, and joining me as always is my co-host, Eric Hilliard.
Are we already in the month of July? Independence Day is right around the corner, and we are now in the dead heat, quite literally, of summer.
Yes, we are. It has been a bit of a sweltering summer here in Southwest Michigan. I like the heat. I don't want to complain about it too much, but boy, it can be a challenge to be outside some of these afternoons we've had.
It's definitely been a period of time where the AC is crank high and the fans are blowing, and it's good to beat the heat.
Yeah, heat's been crazy. The storms have also been crazy, especially down in Southwest where I'm at. We have just been impaled by crazy storms and winds coming off of the lake.
We had a nice lightning storm here in Lansing the other day that I unplugged all of my electronics just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, that's a really wise decision. It sounds like Muskegon got hit pretty hard the past couple of days and lost power in most of the city, so hopefully it recovers quickly. But it has certainly been a hot summer so far. It's only just getting into July. I look forward to spending some time on the lake here pretty soon. Well, we have another great episode lined up for you this month. We'll have on wildlife technician Greg Hochstetler from Muskegon on to talk about turtle conservation work that he has been a part of. Then we'll chat about a bird species many of us are seeing this time of year, the ring-billed gull. And then we'll wrap it up by talking about the one and only marsupial species we have here in Michigan, the Virginia possum. Stick around for the whole episode and listen for your chance to win one of our coveted Wildtalk Podcast camp mugs. And as always, we are so excited to bring you this fresh episode filled with wildlife facts and interesting critter bits. But before we dive into the podcast, let's hear a word from our forests.
Trees provide for the well-being of our state. That's why we work so hard to keep our forests healthy and abundant, so wildlife has a home. And so do people, so that there's clean air and water for everyone. And so Michigan's economy can be as strong as the trees that support it, because every branch of forestry ensures that future generations will always have a tree for life and forests for a lifetime. To learn how sustainable forestry benefits your life, visit michigan.gov/forests for a lifetime.
Today we have on a special guest. Greg Hochstetler from the Muskegon State Game Area is on to chat with us about turtle conservation efforts happening in Southwest region. Thank you, Greg, for taking the time to join us today.
Hi, thank you, Rachel, for having me.
Now, Greg, this is your first time on our podcast, so why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, what your position is and the office that you're in, and a little bit of background.
I'm the wildlife technician at the Muskegon State Game Area, cover Muskegon, Kent, and Ottawa counties. I've been in the wildlife field for 25 some years now. Started out in helping with elk research up in northern Michigan and piping plover, and then North Carolina, and then Ohio, and then back to Michigan.
You've got a lot of experience with a lot of different species, which always makes for a good wildlife team member. We heard you guys are doing a lot of great work with turtle species there in Muskegon. Can you tell us a little bit about the project you've been working on?
We know we have all of the species of turtles that are native to Michigan, including the rare and threatened turtles. Our game area is kind of unique in the fact that we're like on the northern edge of some of the turtles like the spotted turtle, and the southern southwest edge for like the wood turtle and some of the other turtles also that use this area.
It is really fascinating that you have all of the species, all of the native species of turtles in Michigan on that game area. That is such an interesting intersection for turtles.
Kind of neat, too. There's a causeway up 31 that has a turtle fence that they had to put up because the turtles kept crossing the road and getting hit. So there is a fence there that was put in quite a few years ago by DOT. Just because of that reason, people kept hitting turtles. And with that being said, some of our game area is pretty remote. It's very inaccessible. So it makes it a great place for the turtles to have their space. And there's just a lot of good habitat for them.
Oh, that's excellent. Is there anything specific you're trying to learn from these turtle projects?
We know we have turtles here because we have found, or somebody has at least recorded them. All species of animals use different habitats at different times, including the turtles. So we don't have all the information that we would like to have as far as where they are at every time of the year. For example, if we're mowing a field, brush hogging a field with a tractor right next to turtle populations, we don't want to crush them. And by understanding their movements, we can kind of avoid sensitive times, and also how to deter some predation.
How exactly do you track turtle movements? Do you have to go out and find them? Are you using radio telemetry? What's the basic technique for that?
We have other partners involved with us, but one of the main partners that is helping with a lot of this is Michigan Natural Features Inventory, which is a branch of Michigan State University. And so there's some turtle researchers from there that come out a lot, been able to get some telemetry units to put on these turtles. So they're being tracked by satellite. So they can actually go down in the water and stay, and then they come back up and they have little solar panels that recharges the batteries.
So you put these small little backpacks on the turtles?
So they're a little more like just like a little circuit board encased in plastic. And then basically stick them to the side of the shell. There's a little antenna off the back that sticks out off of it.
Now, you mentioned a couple of really key partners. Michigan Natural Features Inventory, we've had on the podcast. They do really great work for rare species. Are there any other partners involved with this project?
John Ball Zoo has come out and done some surveys for some of the rare turtles on the game area. And we've partnered with them as far as like taking them out on the boats down the river. There's the Muskegon Conservation District. They've been helping with surveys and some habitat work on some of this, and are applying for some grant money also. And then local hunting groups that are starting to get involved with some of the habitat restoration also as well.
Yeah, it sounds like a real collective effort to really assist and understand turtles in that area. Something you're trying to learn from the project, and something you're well aware of, is predation on turtles. What are some of those current threats to turtles? Can you speak on that a little further?
One issue is when they come on land, they are more susceptible to raccoons and otter and coyotes and stuff like that. But we're not seeing the offspring as much as we would like to see. You find turtle nests dug up everywhere, from skunks to raccoons, and everything just kind of tears them up. It's not uncommon to find a turtle with 3 legs, where one has been eaten off by a raccoon. The big thing is with the nest predation, when they're trying to have the young, they're not succeeding as far as when the eggs are dug up. Just everywhere you look, you can just find the egg shells from where the raccoons have eaten them. But the raccoons are probably one of the biggest threats.
Is it true or false that one way people can help turtles is to move them off of roadways? I'm assuming, vehicle collisions is a certain type of predation on turtles. If you see a turtle in the road and you can safely pull over, should you help it cross the road?
Well, we get this a lot, and it's not necessarily a problem if people do that. Definitely want to be careful and make sure that you're safe and nobody's going to run into you. But if somebody does decide to help a turtle across, it's good to pay attention which way they were heading when you saw them. So if you put them on the wrong side again, they would end up turning around and trying to go right back across as soon as you left.
That's great information, Greg. I just have one more question for you. You said that you have all of the native Michigan turtle species on the game area, but do you have a favorite turtle species?
I think if I had to choose one, I think it's probably would be the box turtle. I think they have a neat shell.
I would agree with you. The box turtle really is a fascinating critter. We've talked about it a couple of times on our podcast, but its ability to close up and be totally sealed off from any potential predators is such a unique adaptation to have. So I agree with you. Box turtles are really neat. Greg, thank you so much for sharing all this amazing turtle information with us. It was a joy to have you on the podcast to talk about the great turtle work that's happening in Muskegon. All right, folks, Don't fly away. You'll want to stick around or else you'll miss all things feathers coming up next.
There are many camping and lodging opportunities available in Michigan state parks. When you choose state park campgrounds, you get more than just a campsite. State parks offer a diverse range of recreational opportunities including hands-on instructional classes, nature programs, places to fish, boat launches, family-friendly events, and much more. Reservations can be made 6 months in advance, so why wait? Visit midnrreservations.com or call 1-800-44-PARKS to make a reservation.
We are officially in the summer season here in Michigan, and many of us will be flocking to the shorelines of our beautiful Great Lakes. While you're there, you will most certainly spot these feathered acrobats soaring above the water, walking on the beach, or maybe even sneaking in a little too close to try to snag a chip from you. Now, whether you love to see them or you find them pesky, there is no denying that watching the ring-billed gull float along the waves and water is a staple in the beach experience. These birds are commonly referred to as seagulls, but there's actually no species called a seagull. This is just a colloquial name that we silly humans have given to gulls that often you find living near the sea. But the appropriate name for the particular species we're talking about today is the ring-billed gull.
If you see a ring-billed gull, say in this Saginaw Bay, does that make it a bagel?
Eric with the slam dunk. Well played. Now, the Great Lakes are quite the magnet for ring-billed gulls and many other gull species, with its large number of rocky islands and shoals and large coastal wetlands, which provide really excellent nesting and feeding habitat for many waterfowl and gull species, including the ring-billed gull. We also have a herring gull and occasionally a great black-backed gull, which pass through the area during migration. It's estimated that there are well over 500,000 gulls in the Great Lakes region. Now, while many of these gull species do look quite similar, there are a few key identifiers that can help you pick out the ring-billed gull. The adults have all white bodies with gray wings, and the identifying characteristic is probably one you can guess. There is a distinct black ring across their yellow bills. Now, these gulls are often found near the water and nest in colonies near low, sparsely vegetated areas, and typically will shelter or build their nests under plants to stay hidden from aerial predators. Both of the parents are involved and share the workload to construct the nest, which is often just an impression dug out of the sand and then lined with twigs or sticks or grasses, where it will eventually host between 2 and 4 eggs, where both parents will share the incubation duties. These gulls are excellent flyers, as you must be to withstand the winds that are moving across the Great Lakes. And they can fly at more than 40 miles per hour, which helps them to snatch food from the air as it zips by.
I always enjoy seeing the perfect wind conditions where a gull appears to be frozen in midair as though like somehow the laws of physics have been broken for this bird, and it's just hovering, wings out, not moving, just the right amount of wind to keep itself sort of sustained with very minor wing movement at all.
The physics of a bird wing are certainly an interesting topic of study. But that kind of hovering above the water is one of their techniques for foraging for food. So they will hover over those shallowy waters and watch for small fish or invertebrates to swim by and then dive down into the water to catch their next meal. They also can be seen doing this fancy little dance across the sand where they're shaking their legs up and down and scouring for food that is living just below the sandy surface. And as they move their feet rapidly and the sand kind of disperses, these invertebrates pop up and appear, and then their lunch. In addition to feeding on those small invertebrates and freshwater fish, they will also feed on small rodents if given the opportunity, as well as fruits or corn or really any foods they find or foods you leave unguarded. They have become remarkably adaptable and are able to thrive on whatever source of nutrients is available to them. Most of us have observed it's not only the beach where these gulls are found. They're very widespread across our state and are often found far from coastal areas, either perched in parking lots or even near landfills where food is plentiful. In fact, landfills or water treatment facilities tend to be the major birding hotspots for gulls and various other bird species, especially during peak migration periods in the spring and fall, because the food buffet that garbage piles offer is unparalleled for a feeding bird. Now, if you're curious about birding at a water treatment facility, as you rightly should be, because they are really amazing spots to see interesting birds, we recommend checking out the Muskegon County Resource Recovery Center over there in Muskegon County. There is an absolute plethora of birds there to check off your birding list. I was reading a really great article about how to properly bird at a landfill or a water treatment facility, because these are places that have purposes. You need to make sure you're staying out of the way of operations if you are going to go bird there. But the author of the article was birding at a landfill and said that he saw this really rare bird that was migrating through, and it's an all-white bird. And as it rose out of the trash heaps, it looked like a trash angel. And that is such a good visual.
Trash Angel sounds like the name of a really metal band. Give it up for Trash Angel.
It's just the sound of gulls squawking. Now, despite typically staying in small flocks, these birds actually really like their space and will intentionally space themselves out evenly along the beach, standing between 3 and 6 feet apart from other gulls. Now, you all want to also make sure to intentionally give these birds space, and no matter how tempting it may be, do not feed them or approach these birds. Feeding gulls can encourage them to seek out humans for food sources, which can really alter their natural foraging behaviors. And most people don't particularly enjoy being stalked by gulls on the beach when they're enjoying their lunch, so best to keep your distance. You all also want to keep in mind that while they may seem docile, gulls and other birds are still wild animals and they can act unpredictably, so avoid feeding and touching them. Especially avoid handling gulls, waterfowl, and shorebirds, as there has been an outbreak in the highly pathogenic avian influenza since January of 2022, which is a zoonotic disease that can be contracted by humans if you come into contact with the virus. And since January of 22, there has been 12 detections of HPAI in ring-billed gulls. Now, the virus is shed through bodily fluids, and though the public health risk associated with HPAI is extremely low, you should still keep a safe distance from birds that are alive or appear to be sick or dead, as this is the best way to avoid contracting the virus. If you do happen to come in contact with the bird or those bodily fluids, just make sure to wash your hands really well afterwards.
And it's also important to remember that those 12 detections are just the 12 cases that the good folks out at our wildlife disease lab have identified. That doesn't mean that there were only 12 birds that had it. It just means that we had 12 birds in our possession that we were able to test for and confirm the presence of the disease in those birds.
Yes, that is really important to keep in mind. And if while you're out this summer, you do find 6 or more dead birds in one area, then we would like you to report that observation to the DNR. You can either contact us directly through email or phone call, or you can report it to our Eyes in the Field website. Because the virus is so highly contagious among birds, one of the best ways you can help prevent the spread is to avoid feeding them to prevent them from congregating in large numbers together, which could lead to the spread of the virus among the gathered birds. Well, as you make your way across the beach or across the grocery store parking lot this summer, take an extra second to check out these gulls and see if you can spot the ring around their yellow bill. Stick around to learn more about Michigan's wildlife. Next up, we'll be talking about our one and only marsupial after the break.
Pure Michigan hunt applications are on sale now. If you want your shot of what is considered Michigan's ultimate hunt, pick up a $5 application or two. There's no limit to the number you can buy. If you're one of the 3 lucky winners, you'll get a hunting prize package worth thousands, as well as licenses for elk, bear, spring and fall turkey, antlerless deer, and first pick at a managed waterfowl area for a reserved hunt. Purchase anywhere hunting licenses are sold or online at michigan.gov/PMH.
Try to catch me howling at the moon.
One of the most unique animals we have in our state is the Virginia possum, or opossum, if you prefer. It has a few really peculiar qualities that make it one of a kind. Generally, I think possums have gotten a little bit of a bad rap, but I'm hoping to change some hearts and minds today so that the possum can get a little bit more respect on its name. Possums are the only marsupial in North America. A marsupial being a type of mammal that births its offspring prematurely so that it will finish developing inside the mother's pouch. Possums have short, woolly, gray and white fur with a long, scaly prehensile tail. Now, prehensile means there is utility to that tail, and it is used to grasp or hold objects. And while their tails are strong enough to carry small objects like sticks and grass, they're not usually strong enough for the possum to hang from their tails as they are so often depicted. Most often, the tail is used to carry leaves and sticks to make a den a little extra cozy. Possums have a cone-shaped head from the base of their skull to the tip of their pointy pink nose and mostly black, rounded, hairless ears. They have short, squatty legs and 5 well-formed digits on both their front and rear feet, so their tracks are easily distinguishable in mud or snow because of the 5 pronounced toes that they have, which are each equipped in a claw except for the big toe on the rear foot, which functions like a human thumb, and that allows them to grasp objects like tree limbs. This dexterity helps them to be arboreal, which is why they're often found living in or foraging from trees.
I'm pretty sure that there is some possum lineage in my family because we can all use our feet to grab things very well. We have like freakish toes that are almost like opposable thumbs.
Do you also have a pouch in which you raise your babies in?
Yes.
Well, all you're missing is that prehensile tail, unless you've got something else to tell us. They're also known for being house hoppers and will move night after night to abandoned woodchuck holes, tree hollows, brush piles, or even spaces near our homes, like under porches and garages. Because of their flexible housing needs, the possum is described as a wanderer, as it does not have a specified territory or well-defined home range, rather opting for a meandering lifestyle where it seeks out a new burrow to sleep in every couple of days or so. They're generally nocturnal animals and rely mostly on the sense of smell and hearing to locate their foods, which are a multitude of different things. Possums are omnivorous and very opportunistic and will feed on pretty much anything they can come across, be it amphibians, bird eggs, other small mammals, garbage, pet foods, or even scavenged road-killed animals, which it chews on with its 50 teeth, which is more teeth than any other terrestrial animal in North America.
I had a friend of mine that was out scouting and came across a dead deer that suddenly started moving, and then this possum emerges from inside of the carcass of this deer. So yes, they will even burrow into larger animals to get at the tasty morsels they seek.
Yes, and I feel like that's where people kind of get their strong opinions about possums, is because they so often scavenge off of other dead animals, and that can lead to them looking a little vile and volatile. But if you just think about how resourceful that actually makes possums, they don't waste things. They are, they provide services to get rid of pesky roadkill species. They remove them for us. And they're also very fastidious in staying clean. They're clean themselves like cats. Like they're constantly cleaning their pelts and their fur to maintain, a clean, luxurious coat. Super cool. I have a possum in my backyard. It is the absolute delight of my summer right now. My backyard is fenced in and it connects to 5 other backyards. I live in a subdivision and it basically creates this highway for squirrels and possums. And this is a chunky possum. It's big enough that it sets off my neighbor's security light every night. And so it sets off the light and then you hear this ting, 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 and it goes up to the top of the fence. And it runs the top of the fence all the way through the subdivision. And you can hear it for like a good 500 feet after it passes my house. And I just find it quite delightful. Now, there is always a lot of talk over whether or not possums are major consumers of ticks. Some older studies have found that possums can consume about 5,000 ticks per season. But recent studies have found that ticks actually make up a very low percentage of diet in Virginia possums, especially in the Midwest. A study out of Eureka College in Illinois analyzed the stomach contents of 32 wild-caught Virginia possums from central Illinois, and using a dissecting microscope, they searched through the contents for ticks and tick body parts and did not locate any evidence of ticks. And after an additional, very thorough review of available science looking at opossum diets, they concluded that ticks are actually not a preferred item for Virginia possums. So while possums are not quite the tick-eating machines that we so desperately wanted them to be, we will not hold that against them. As we mentioned, possums are true opportunistic eaters, and typically the overlap between possums and people usually occurs when humans are unintentionally leaving food sources out for possums. Trash and pet foods are the two most likely culprits. If you find that you have a possum in an area where it's creating a conflict, there are a few steps you can take. Possums generally don't cause property damage, but will sometimes raid your garbage or eat pet foods, as we mentioned, and that can cause quite a mess for us to clean up. Occasionally, they will also den under buildings or decks or under wood piles where they will likely have babies. So to prevent or handle any of those issues before they occur, you'll want to first, of course, remove food sources and put your garbage out the morning of pickup rather than the night before. You also can use noisemakers in an attempt to scare away possums, or if you find that there is a possum denning under your porch, exclusion is really the best route. So placing lattice up from the ground to the deck to keep the possum out will generally work because, as we mentioned, possums will use dens that other animals have created. They are not particularly motivated to dig their own holes. And so if it's a little bit difficult for them to get into these small spaces under your porch, they usually will just move on and find someplace better to live. Occasionally, possums will also fall into window wells and find themselves unable to climb out. If you come across this, you can just place some type of board down into the well and it will allow the possum to climb out. Interestingly, possums are actually not native to Michigan. This marsupial was absent from the Great Lakes Basin before the 1800s, but it has slowly spread north into our area during the past 2 centuries and has expanded northward. Even today, it continues to move farther north. Because they are from the south, opossums have evolved for warmer weather and have difficulty with colder weather. So due to their sensitivity of harsh winters, opossums very rarely live in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. And down here in southern Michigan, they are impacted by frostbite, which is why their ears and tails appear to be black. And when I learned that fact, that their tails and ears are supposed to be pink, but instead are black because they're frostbitten, it made me want to cry a little bit. That's a little bit heartbreaking. Possums have this really interesting advantage that helps keep them mostly healthy. The average body temperature of a possum is relatively low compared to most other mammals and typically ranges from 90 to 99 degrees Fahrenheit, which contributes to their resiliency to certain diseases and parasites. So they do not often get as sick with viruses, diseases, parasites as other mammals do. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I suppose you'd need some sort of an advantage like that when your diet consists of bile rotting material. That adaptation to protect you from harm from those things seems like it would come in really handy.
It does, and that's likely why they have been around for so long. Possums mate in mid to late winter, with babies born just 10 to 13 days later. Now, a mother possum typically births around 10 babies, and each of them are so tiny that collectively they weigh less than a penny. These underdeveloped newborns have enough leg muscle to climb into the mother's pouch, where they continue developing while feeding on her milk. And after their senses have mostly developed and the muscle formed, they will emerge from the pouch and accompany the mother, often hitching a ride on the mother's back while she forages. So if you ever see a possum of unusual size, you may wish to take a closer look because there's a good chance she has between 5 and 10 mini possums absolutely clutching onto her sides and getting a ride to wherever the mother needs to go. When threatened, a possum's first defense strategy is to either hiss or freeze. And if pursued, they will indeed play dead. A behavior that includes falling to one side, baring their teeth, drooling, defecating, and even reducing their heart and breathing rate. This catatonic state can last up to 6 hours, often startling predators or boring predators that they lose interest, giving the possum a chance to escape. And while they may not be the most intelligent species, this technique has certainly worked, and that's why the species has persisted. As we've learned, there is a lot more to these animals than just meets the eye. They are remarkably interesting and quite resilient, having made the journey northward and adapting to new environments.
Opossum, we salute you.
Well, don't play dead for too long. Up next, Pete Kailing will be here to tell us about some outdoor opportunities this month.
Michigan.gov/DNR Trails is your destination for trail maps, trail etiquette, and trail closure information. Trail information for biking, cross-country skiing, horseback riding, hiking, off-road vehicle riding, snowmobiling, snowshoeing, and even water trails for kayaking and canoeing are available. While you're there, remember to check out information about pet-friendly recreation, track chairs, and the Iron Bell Trail. All available at Michigan.gov/DNR Trails.
I am Pete Kailing, DNR wildlife biologist, bringing you the July calendar for outdoor sporting action. Summer is flying fast, with June 20, the summer solstice, longest day of the year, now in our rearview mirror. July brings us wildflowers, spotted fawn skipping across roadways, and hot and humid summer showers. The elk permit drawing was June 24th. Results available at Michigan.gov/elk. Congratulations to you who scored a tag. July 8 means you can train dogs again on public lands through April 15th the following year. July falls about in the middle of our 140-day growing season in Michigan, and it's not too late to consider your food plots, even if you have not quite got to them yet. Don't despair. We've had a very wet summer, and if you want to plant something for deer, July or even early August is still a good time to plant the humble yet effective red-top turnip. Turnip seed is inexpensive, available at most farm and garden stores. Best to till your food plot and plant those tiny turnip seeds quite shallow. 3 pounds per acre is a good start. Cut that in half if you want to mix in some clover or other forage. And if you still have existing weeds mixed with the bare dirt after tilling, just plant the turnips anyway. Lightly a disc or cultipack for soil seed contact and walk away. Turnips are a good choice in sandy or loam ground. Typically deer ignore them till late fall or after a frost. And if you've ignored your food plot totally and the weeds are hip high with all this rain, don't despair. Classic weeds such as ragweed, asters, and even pokeweed with a whopping 32% protein are all excellent deer forage. Post a trail camera and see for yourself. Another advantage of your no-attention food plot for you turkey and grouse hunters is that native weeds like milkweed and fleabane daisy attract insects like crazy, and insects make up 80% of the protein for turkey poults and ruffed grouse poults. And those same weeds are helping feed pollinator insects like monarch butterflies and honeybees. No reason your hunting food plot can't multitask just like you do. So there are some low-budget, low-effort tips for your abandoned food plot. Remember that woodchucks and hayfields are fair game all summer, and they show up really well after the first cutting of hay is off the fields. This month's poem, Over Hill, Over Dale, the first stanza from a poet you may have heard of, William Shakespeare. Over hill, over dale, through bush, through briar, over park, over pale, through flood, through fire, I do wander everywhere, swifter than the moon's sphere. So that's a wrap for July outdoor action. Get some mud on your boots. Take a friend outdoors. But for Pete's sake, try to keep the mud and burrs off the carpet. Or at least blame the dog if you have one. Till next time.
Ooh, looks like we've got a question from the mailbag.
1, 2, 3.
I live in the thumb of Michigan and been taking some walks with the dog on some trails. And I happened to notice holes dug in the ditch banks. And I'm just curious what that would be. They're pretty large holes, much larger than a rabbit hole. Just curious what that could be if anyone has an answer.
Well, that is a great question, Sarah. Thank you for sending it to us. Now, given that the burrow is on the side of a bank, we are inclined to think that this is actually a burrow created from a muskrat, a semi-aquatic species that is known for burrowing into the sides of riverbanks. However, those kinds of burrows are sometimes used by multiple different types of species. So it certainly could also be a beaver or even a raccoon, fox, or as we learned in this episode, a possum could certainly take up residence there as well. So while we can't say with certainty what animal created that burrow initially, there's a good chance that it's a species that's using both the water and the land in the area. Now, if you do come across another hole and you can see any type of tracks nearby it or even scat, and you can take a picture of that track or scat with some kind of size reference and send us a photo, then we'd be able to further identify what species are at least in that area. Thank you for that question. And remember, if you want to hear your voice on the podcast, send us an audio recording of you asking a question and send it to dnr-wildlife@michigan.gov. Now is your opportunity to win a Wild Talk Podcast Camp mug. As a thank you to our listeners, we'll be giving away a mug or two every episode. Our June mug winners are Cody Perkins and Val Kienitz. You'll want to check your email as we'll be getting in touch with you soon. They answered the question, what is the top speed of the peregrine falcon as it dives for its prey? Now, the answer we were looking for was 200 miles per hour. A lot of you answered the question with 242 miles per hour, but reliable sources such as Audubon and Cornell Labs of Ornithology give the answer 200 miles per hour, and so that is what we were looking for. To be entered into the drawing this month, test your wildlife knowledge and answer our wildlife quiz question. This month's question is a bit of a tricky one this month. What native to Michigan turtle species has a tubular snout and a soft shell? Email your name and answer to us at dnr-wildlife@michigan.gov to be entered for a chance to win a mug. Be sure to include the subject line as Mug Me and submit your answers by July 15th. We'll announce winners and the answer on next month's podcast, so be sure to listen in to see if you've won and for the next quiz question. Good luck, everyone.
Michigan conservation officers are working hard to protect and keep the outdoors safe for current and future generations. If you witness a natural resources violation, you can call or text the Report All Poaching hotline 24 hours a day at 1-800-292-7800 or fill out the complaint form available at michigan.gov/RAP. If you would like more information on becoming a conservation officer, click on Become a CO at michigan.gov/conservation officers.
Well, thank you for joining us on this July edition of the Wild Talk Podcast. Remember, if you have questions about wildlife or hunting, you can call 517-284-9453 or email dnr-wildlife@michigan.gov. We will see you back here in August.
This has been the Wild Talk Podcast, your monthly podcast airing the first of each month and offering insights into the world of wildlife across the state of Michigan. You can reach the Wildlife Division at 517-284-9453 or dnr-wildlife@michigan.gov.